As you guys know on this channel, I have been talking about a third wrestling promotion is definitely needed in today's world of pro wrestling. I'm talking about one that has a major television deal on a national scale. I'm talking about one that is on the level of AEW and WWE. And yes, maybe I am speaking too soon, but long term, I do believe Terminus could be that solution. If you're not familiar with what Terminus is, we're going to talk about it in today's video. Also, on top of that, we are going to discuss Sasha Banks, who in fact confirmed that she requested her release from WWE. And on top of that, Cody Rhodes, he has confirmed his retirement plans. I'm going to tell you guys what I think that means for the future of AEW and what to expect as his contract comes to an end very, very soon. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Terminus, it has been announced by Jonathan Gresham and Baron Black that Terminus is coming to debut January 16th, 2022 from Atlanta, Georgia at the Kroc Center. And this is modern age grappling. Now, Moose is the current Impact Wrestling World Champion, and the good news is he is headed to Terminus, which is really exciting stuff. Obviously, we know that there are plenty of announcements coming soon, but I'm really excited about this because this style of wrestling is definitely not new, and there are definitely a lot of people who are unfamiliar with modern age grappling. But I do believe that there is a lot of interest, and there will be a lot of interest, of course, within time. Now, as you guys know, I talked about having a true alternative to WWE and AEW. And you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad we're this, when you look at wrestling, you got Impact and GCW and ROH, and there's a place to work for everybody, and that's fantastic. But I do think this could be something special. And I think this could ultimately be the wrestling product that touches an untouched market. We look at MMA, for example, there's Bellator, KSW, ONE FC, UFC. I mean, literally, I could keep going on and on and on. I mean, there are so many different promotions. Ryzen, right? There are so many promotions within the world of MMA and combat sports in general, whether it's boxing or now you got Triad Combat from Triller Fight Club. There is a need for combat sports, but when it comes to pro wrestling, WWE and AEW definitely don't bring in that audience. And I think Terminus could actually be the product that does. So yes, I haven't seen production quality. I haven't seen, all the plans that they've released yet. There is so much for them to do, but I do think the idea is there, and I do believe it should happen at some point. I'm not saying it's going to happen in the first 2 years or 3 years, but I really encourage everybody to check this out, and let's find out together whether or not Terminus is going to be a great product. I do have hope for it. I think there's a lot of people unfamiliar with this style, and the great thing is, Moose is somebody I would have never expected to be on this card. I don't know about his background when it comes to grappling and things like that. Obviously, I love his work in Impact Wrestling, but my point that I'm trying to make here is I am intrigued already. So you know what? In the future, fantasy booking, just plotting things out, I do think there are a ton of people who would enjoy this type of stuff, but the product and the quality and all of that has to be right. Now, the good news is we have somebody like Jonathan Gresham behind it, and I think that's exciting. Now, also, one thing I do want to mention, because I talk about a third promotion quite often, one with a national TV deal. If you don't believe that there are TV partners who would be interested in this type of stuff, I don't know what to tell you. TNT, Warner Media have brought in ONE FC. Obviously, Viacom has Bellator. The major players love combat sports and pro wrestling. So I do hope in the long term of things, I don't know what their future looks like, but I do hope that we go to that point where we can actually start getting modern age grappling an actual audience, one that people would enjoy watching, because to me, I think there is an audience for it. I'm not saying it's going to happen today, but I do think down the line it is possible. All right, guys, I do want to talk a little bit about Sasha Banks. She did confirm recently with Ariel Helwani that she did, in fact, request her release from WWE. Basically, what was happening was she just kind of had a little bit of an issue of finding herself, and she really needed to take a break. She requested her release. Vince McMahon and the company would not grant her the release, but what did end up happening was she was granted time off. Now, you guys might actually remember this. At the time, there were tons of rumors about Sasha Banks and her hiatus. There was a lot of rumors that she just flat out quit. There was just so many different things that were being discussed with Sasha Banks at the time that I even was confused by it. So I'm really glad that Sasha Banks has actually clarified her position on everything. And she is very thankful for the time that she had off. And she was very thankful that WWE was willing to, even be there for her in that regard. What often happens with wrestlers when they request their release, everybody thinks it has to do with the company. And within Sasha Banks' situation, that's actually not really the case, which it's good news. And the good news is Sasha Banks is doing some really great work right now in the WWE. Now, of course, I do want to talk a little bit about this a little bit more in depth, because when it comes to Sasha Banks and her request, obviously it wasn't granted. And while I don't think WWE would ever be in a situation to release Sasha Banks because she is arguably one of their top superstars, I wouldn't find it shocking if WWE released anybody from their roster, which is the problem in itself. Now, I do believe that Sasha Banks, she's been very respectful towards the WWE and her experience in WWE and Vince McMahon. So the good thing is, WWE was obviously very accommodating for her. But what I really want to know is, and obviously this was years ago, but what is Sasha Banks feeling like today and in the world of pro wrestling? We have AEW, we have all these different promotions. Obviously, she posts images all the time with her training with other people and stuff like that. And obviously, it's not really a secret that she watches WWE's competition. Is there a chance that Sasha Banks ever does leave? And that's the real thing. Like, what are your dream matches? Where would you want Sasha Banks to go? She requested her release years ago, and that was in the past, and that was something to do with her, personal self and personal health, and she had to get right. So I'm not saying that Sasha Banks is leaving. I'm not saying she's planning to leave or requesting to leave now, but the probably now would make the most sense in terms of the product, right? What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comment section down below. I do want to talk a little bit about Cody Rhodes, because Cody Rhodes did in fact confirm in an interview with Marietta Daily Journal, the MDJ podcast. Basically came out a couple days ago, really. And essentially what has happened is Cody Rhodes did confirm that he has plans to retire at 40 years old. Now, a lot of this obviously has to do with the fact that he is now a father. He wants to be there for his daughter, and it's the right answer. I get it. I don't really have an issue with when Cody Rhodes retires. But I do want to talk a little bit more in depth about the retirement in general, because Cody Rhodes currently has a contract that is set to expire very soon. And no, I don't believe he's going to WWE. No, I don't think he's leaving AEW. But this will be very telling about how AEW conducts their business, because with Cody Rhodes' contract expiring, he's only got about 3.5, 4 years left until retirement, basically. So, the Young Bucks did sign a new contract. It was later clarified that they signed until 2024. So my question is, will AEW sign Cody Rhodes into a talent contract or a dual contract where he'll serve both as the EVP and then as talent? What does those contracts look like? I know everybody kind of, I've seen the mixed responses in terms of AEW disclosing how much they sign people for, but at this point with Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and Kenny all being EVPs, I'm very curious to know what that looks like financially for the company. Obviously, with Cody Rhodes retiring at the age of 40, we should expect the next few years of Cody Rhodes putting over talent even more than ever, and we're starting to see this more than ever. Also, one thing that never really gets discussed is Cody Rhodes turning heel and winning the championship, going back on his decision to relinquish that opportunity. I do think it should happen, and I think it should happen before he retires, because I do believe when Cody Rhodes does in fact retire, I think we'll get to a point where he will, by that time, have already turned heel, won the championship, but then put over an emerging star while doing so. And that is what I kind of think will happen later on. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Again, thank you so much for watching and your support. And I'll see you guys next time right here on youtube.com/AngoYT.